Welcome to the Insights and Innovators podcast from Market Research Institute International, where top research professionals share practical insights and innovation strategies to help researchers deliver more business impact and earn their strategic seat at the table. Today's episode is sponsored by Brand Riffs. Brand Riffs is a qualitative marketing research consultancy delivering impactful insights for brand marketing and innovation growth strategies. Our senior strategists use virtual and in-person methodologies to fulfill unique objectives. Now here's your host for today's episode.
So welcome to our podcast, Insights and Innovators. And for those who don't know me, I am Katie Gross, and we are diving into how tomorrow's research talent gets hired in Agile. And joining me is Ryan Barry, president of Zappi, who's also a podcast host of Inside Insights.
You got it.
And of course, is highly active as a thought leader on LinkedIn and someone whose career I have personally looked up to over the years. I've tried to emulate Ryan many times. I actually saw Ryan about 10 years ago present in a room full of traditional market research folks, all about Agile, at a time when it was not really the done thing. So I've also had the pleasure of working with Ryan as a client in the past, and today we work at really similar companies, both at the cutting edge of insights. So let's talk about moving our industry forward, Ryan.
Yes, and I've always admired you too. I remember that day in Waltham, Mass, and we talked for a long time. And I remember I thought I was being overly provocative, and you were extremely validating. So thank you. And it was Allison Morgan who we were chatting with. Shout out to Allison Morgan.
Oh, Allison Morgan. She's now retired from the insights industry, but what a legend.
Absolute legend of a woman. Fantastic human being.
Yeah. All right. So give the audience an introduction to yourself and your role today.
Okay, so as Katie said, my name's Ryan. I've really been in the business of trying to help companies get closer to their customers my whole career. And I started when really online panels became a thing, giving companies access to panels. And I worked at a company called GMI, which was wonderful until it wasn't. We got bought by a big holding company. And then I met Steve Phillips, who's the founder of Zappi, and joined him in 2014. Where I helped build our US business, stood up our first ever customer success team, marketing team. And today I serve as the company's president, so I oversee our operation across the globe. And I'm still passionate about the same thing. I believe customer and employee-centric businesses win in today's paradigm. And so I want to try to help companies get there. And I'm really passionate about the consumer insights industry because it's just been so good to me throughout my career. And outside of work, I'm a husband and I have 3 kids, and I try to spend as much time with my friends as I can because, as you know, Katie, when we work in jobs like this, time is not on our side. So trying to spend as much time with people that I love and that I care for as I possibly can.
I love that. And you have a very enviable Instagram. You're always on the water, on the golf course, here and there. I love watching it.
Yes, as much as possible. I want to be outside.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing to be outside. I think I maybe should have been a landscaper, but we'll have that on another podcast.
Landscaping podcast in our future.
Yep, exactly.
So I'm going to start with some questions about you first, and then we're going to move into talent and hiring. So you and I have kind of charted really similar careers. Neither of us really started in sales. We started more in that kind of project and research management area through online panel companies, as you mentioned, into Agile companies. So tell us, do you think that you have kind of charted that course and been so successful in insights, which was probably known as market research, maybe when you started?
Yeah, totally. And I remember when I first, so I always thought I was going to work in advertising. Mm-hmm. And I, student loans, put myself through college. And I remember I was a senior in college, and one of the professors was like, if you, anybody want to design a program for this market research conference, you can get a free ticket. And I was like, oh, sure. I used InDesign, designed the program. And I went to, at the time, it was called the Market Research Association. Now it's called the Insights Association. And I went to the New England Market Research Association, which many, many years later is where Katie and I actually met. Mm-hmm. And I met a bunch of people, John Zarella, who's CEO of Research Results, and this guy Ashish, who was at GMI, and Allison Morgan, who we both know and have learned a lot from. And I then thought to myself, I really like these people. And then I realized how much ad agencies pay entry-level students. And I had, a lot of, so I went into work in this company called GMI. And at the time, GMI was a business that was trying to be everything to everybody. So it was survey programming tool. It was a data collection platform. They had some syndicated research. And right around the time I had finished my onboarding, it was the 2008 economy tank. So all hell broke loose. And I had, as Katie said, I started in project management, and they had to right size the business. And so at that time, I got to be really exposed to people that I probably otherwise wouldn't have, like our president, our VP of sales, and really just spend as much time in their offices as they would let me, asking them questions. And about a year and a half into that, I was like, I want to, the president was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I want your job someday. And he's like, well, at some point you should get into sales because you understand how the business works, but you'll understand how we make money if you work in sales. And so, I applied for a sales job. They brought in somebody who was an adult. I applied for another one. They brought in somebody else. And then eventually they gave me an at bat. And, then I sort of went down a track of being in sales for a really long time and learning, how companies make money and how feedback gets into product. And that was really fascinating. And then we got bought by Kantar, as I said, and we just stopped innovating. So I started a nonprofit with my best friend to raise money for kids, which was super fun. Like we threw parties basically, and we gave the money back to the Boys and Girls Club. Super simple thing. And then my wife and I started a dog care company called Wicked Happy Dogs. And I was doing that at night. And then I was looking at this paradigm of like market research takes too long. This industry is really stale. What's going on? And as I said, I met Steve, and over the course of the last 10 years, really have just done whatever the firms needed me to do to help us take advantage of a big opportunity or to solve a big problem. And that's been a wonderful experience, from, going from being a sales leader to leading engineering teams and doing cash raises and managing a board of directors and the same sort of experiences, Katie, you've been through. Just I think the big thing along the way is being, for me anyway, the luck of finding people who are willing to bet on you and then doing them right and working your ass off to make sure that the people who take chances on you were right. And I think that requires constantly being willing to learn and unlearn. So, there was a point in my career where all I did was run hard at everything. And then, this yourself, you get into leadership and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's not about running. Sometimes I have to sit back and coach, and that's a different set of muscles that you need to, frankly, like completely change the way you are to enable that behavior. So, I think hustle, learning and unlearning, and then just the benefit of people taking chances on you and making them look good seriously.
Yeah.
And making the most of those opportunities.
I love that. I love that. And I think what sales really does for a person, because we hear no so often,
Yes.
that it teaches you resilience as well. I think that's really kind of where I really recommend like folks not just learning how to make money for a company, but really learning that resilience of like taking those hard knocks all day, every day. It just makes you so much stronger.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't, everybody has some degree of sales in their job, but that's a hard job. You're navigating the complexity of an organization, you're navigating the complexity of a market. As Katie said, like our companies are rivals, we're navigating that dynamic and still being friends, and then also the customer's paradigm, which is really complex. I love it, and we were joking before we hit record. We still get out of our cage and play sometimes, even though we're probably not supposed to, and it's still fun. Even though you get told no sometimes.
Yeah, I'm always like itching. I'm like, let me join that call. Let me join that call.
Yeah, exactly. It's too much
So it
fun.
sounds like what you kind of mentioned there was a little bit of luck, making sure you find those people that trust in you, believe in you, doing them right, making them look good. I love that kind of comment you made there. And then learning and unlearning. And I think that's a growth mindset, because too
Yes.
often people at our stage in our career in particular are like, all right, I know how to do it. My job is to go train now. But actually it's about like, what do I not yet know? What do I not yet know? What do I not yet know? And continuing that.
Yeah, and it's like I had so as you said, I have a podcast, and I had somebody on the podcast once who's like, I just wish we could all embrace the curiosity of a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
And I have young kids, as you know, and it is amazing how curious they are. But societally, we try to codify everything that happens, and it ultimately results in lazy thinking. And so I'm always inspired by kids because they're like, but why? But why? But why? And I try to bring that in. But you're right. You get to a stage in your career and it's easy to rely on shortcuts, or I used to do it this way, so therefore it's going to work. And I mean, at the time we're recording this, language models and generative AI are changing the world around us. So throw the playbooks out the window anyway. It doesn't matter. You're having to navigate, the market.
Exactly. As many of my colleagues know, I spent the weekend kind of like building custom GPTs and like, I'm going to get into this. I'm going to learn it. I'm going to need to know, because this is my future career, and
Absolutely.
act two for me.
Act two.
So thinking back, is there anything you would tell your younger self about like the insights industry or about a career at large?
So I've always, it's a good question. I'm somebody who like, I like to learn from things, but I don't really live with regret. So I think like with the insights industry, my initial instinct was I love the people that work in this industry. And that's just been true this entire time. Like, I'll tell you a funny story. When we were starting Zappi, um, 2 months in, I had to go to Mexico City to speak at a conference, and I got my wallet and my laptop stolen. And at the time, my laptop was essentially the company. Like, there was nothing, we had no infosec team or anything else. And that could have been a horrific night. Like, basically, I got my identity stolen in Mexico City, very scary. And everybody at the conference was like, come to dinner with us. Here's 50 pesos. Here's a credit card. And with no questions asked, none of them knew me. And I just think that's really representative of the community of people. And if you think about why, like the type of people who work in a consumer centric industry are thoughtful, they're intellectual, they're curious, they build community. And so that's just honestly been true this entire time. And I have so many great friends, from this industry. I think the thing that I didn't appreciate both at GMI and frankly at Zappi, like how slow the changes in an enterprise environment in insights, which is a cost center. We were joking earlier, like it's just now that brands are like, oh, we use platforms, and platforms have been like, Suzy is an amazing company, Zappy's an amazing company, and neither of us are new companies, but you're
Yeah.
just starting to see like critical mass adoption. And yet again, right at a time when everything's getting disrupted again anyway. So I think the rate of pace, I just didn't appreciate being as slow. And it's if anybody follows me on LinkedIn, I complain about that often and try to push us to be a little faster.
Yeah. I often see you on LinkedIn and think I know the kind of cold he's just come off.
You get me, Katie.
I get you, exactly. I feel it. So let's talk about hiring the next generation and hiring talent. So difficult question, and nobody ever gets this right. But what is it that you look for at the interview stage when bringing on a new team member, particularly in kind of for Agile insights?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I try to codify our best people on on their best day in our environment. Every environment's different. So in interviews and recruitment is a really, it's really a hard process, right? If you think about it, the candidate is making a big decision for their family and their life
Yep.
at most 7 hours of time, and you're making a big decision for your company at most 7 hours of time and some references. And as we both will willingly admit, we've missed as much as we've hit. So I am very unorthodox in the way I interview. I try to get to know people and get them to relax and learn about them as a person and the environment where they do their best work and the environment where they are stressed and how they are when they're stressed. So like, as I lead our C-suite, and in recruiting the C-suite, you get the benefit of doing like Hogan assessments, and Hogan assessment is a way to assess people essentially in their primal instincts. Like, when you're really high, what are you like? When you're really low, what are you like? And obviously as adults, you build muscles to sort of compensate for that. But to codify like what I'm really looking for, I want somebody who's curious, who's coachable, who's ambitious and growth minded. And I think I would look for that in an engineer. I would look for that in a salesperson and a customer success person, because I think the prerequisite is you're a hardworking, smart individual. I've in some roles you need specialism, like if you're hiring a demand gen person or head of advertising product, you need somebody who knows a lot about advertising. But in the customer success, as an example, which we're both big fans of the industry of customer success, I've had as much success. Like, this is woman Pooja that's worked for Zappi for a while. She was a front of the house manager at Marriott. Cameron, who's one of our best friends, was a bartender. And so equally, there are some roles where you're looking for the DNA of a human being, and then you can coach them, and others where it's like, I need specialism. But I think the roles aside, are they coachable? Are they curious? Are they growth minded? And are they going to be comfortable in a fast moving environment? Because I know this is true about both of our companies, and any company that's thriving today is willing to disrupt themselves, which means it's constantly changing. There is no such thing as exploiting what's working. You're constantly adjusting and making moves and taking advantage of an opportunity, or saying, oh crap, we made a mistake and we need to. So you need somebody who can be like, oh, okay, we're going to go do that, and not be driven by their empire or their ego, or what's right is what we're going to do at all times.
Yeah, my CEO boss, Matt, always says like people shouldn't be trying to build their fiefdom, because it's never going to change. It's going to change. It's going to change. And you got to disrupt yourself. And we talk about kind of like Suzify, but I'm like, what does the Suzify of 2025 look like, let alone 24? And it's probably not what we did in 2023 for sure. So,
and nothing ever, change is the only true constant in life, right? Like, nothing's ever going to be the same. And like, I'm sure there's early memories of Susie. I know I have them in my head, like
Mhm.
early memories of Zappi, and people oftentimes are like, but it's changed. And I'm like, yeah, no crap, it's changed. Everything
Of
changes.
course. Yeah.
Like, and if it didn't, that'd be sad, you
Yeah.
know?
We
Uh,
evolved. We as humans changed from
yeah,
thousands of
exactly.
years ago.
And the irony is we evolve, it's a constant, but we don't like to do it. It's like not a natural
Yeah.
want to change, even though it's sort of a constant in life. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
Humans look for patterns and they want to put
Yeah.
companies in boxes and like platforms versus traditional into boxes. We're often trying to break out of that.
Amen.
When we talk about kind of leadership, so I was recently interviewing for a new leader. I did hire her, and she gave me this really nice framework. She said, "I'm here to inspire, educate, and inform." And I really love that because it's kind of like I can tell people to do top of funnel work and I can tell people to make sure you get face to face with the client, but it's about inspiring them to do that too. Do you have any kind of like leadership frameworks that you use or kind of three key mantras?
Oh my, I just love that. Inspire, educate, inform. I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
I don't have it nearly as succinct as that amazing woman you just hired. Um, I believe people can do great things with context. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of times people think, oh, president of a company knows all the answers. No, I just have more context than an associate CSM does. And so I lead very transparently, and I try to educate people. So I'll use that woman's framework. Like, this is what's going on. This is why we make the decision. So I'm very communicative with people,
Mhm.
give full context. And I think I try really hard to be super clear of where we're going and what I expect. And once, like, I view it, I was giving this coaching to one of my colleagues recently. He's our chief customer officer, Julio. I love him to pieces. And basically saying, like, if someone on your team is super clear on where we're going and what they're expected to do, then your only job is to get on their side of the table and help them get there. And if they're not super clear, well, then that's on you. Like, your job is to say, we're taking that hill and this is what I need
Yeah.
you to do. And then really, like, if we were on the same team, Katie, what can I do to help you today? And a lot of times, as you know, you're just helping people think through what they already
Yeah.
know how to do. And
Yeah.
you're asking them questions, or maybe you're encouraging them. Like, I had this woman who I've worked with for a long time, and she is one of the smartest people I know, but she doubts herself sometimes. And a
Yeah.
lot of times my coaching to her is like, nope, you got it. Just go, be bolder.
Yeah.
It's like, that's all she needed to hear in that moment. So yeah, I guess in summary, like, I lead very transparently,
Mhm.
want to make sure everybody's super clear where we're going and what they need to do. And then ultimately, like, the rest of it is my job is to help them be successful.
Yeah.
And I just love seeing people, like, I love seeing people overcome something hard, do something they didn't think they could do, and like win a big contract. It's like a really fun feeling. And I used to, as you know, we've both been individual contributors in our life. It's more fun seeing a team pull something off than you or me
Yeah.
winning a contract. Like, which at the time I never thought. Like, I was like, yeah, I got to give me the ball. But it's
Yeah.
really nice to coach people and see them do amazing things.
Yeah, when I worked at Cint, actually, one of our values was no deal is won or lost alone. And I
Yeah,
love that phrase, and I've like taken it forward for sure. So
yeah,
we are
that's a good.
kind of short on time. So one of the questions that we always ask in our in the industry is, what does the researcher of the future need to look like? What is the modern research practitioner? But we lead revenue teams. So actually, I'm going to ask you and pivot that question to what's the essential skill set needed for the modern seller in Agile Insights that's going to kind of lead into the next 3 to 5 years?
No, that's a good question. You need to understand the product you're selling in and out. You need to understand the customers that you're servicing and what their bosses are asking them to do, because they don't care about your toy. They care about themselves, their career, their job. And you need to create value for those people. Create value doesn't mean selling, it means helping. And how, like, that we were talking about Gary Vaynerchuk earlier. He has this great book called Jab, Jab, Right Hook. And it's his philosophy of sales, which is like, how do I give you value a lot of times to earn an ask?
Yeah.
And so I think, helping people, connecting people, knowing their business is an expectation, because the table stakes now are you're going to be good at servicing. The table stakes now are that your product's going to be good. And I think if you know those things, you can challenge them and help them be right and show them how to get there. Because, like, I say this a lot internally, Katie, like, it's not so-and-so company's job to figure out how to get value from Zappi. It's actually Zappi's job.
Yeah.
So, like,
Exactly.
it's not just, here's my software, do you want to buy a subscription? It's like, here's my software and here's how we're going to help you be successful with it, step by step by step. And I think it's a challenge, because the old SaaS models are very much like outbound, 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 disco, pass off. And I think modern sellers, particularly in the inside space, you're dealing with VPs at corporate companies. they don't want to, they want to talk to somebody who actually knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge. So, like, I'm sure you face this paradigm all the time at Suzy. Am I hiring a researcher and teaching them how to sell, or am I hiring a seller and teaching them research? And I think if you go back to my first principle is like growth-minded, curious, smart, adaptable, doesn't matter. You can sort of help either person. But I think you really got to think about how you learn the customer's language, their business, their context, and translate what you do and how you help them.
Yeah, for sure. I was chatting to a customer recently, and she said, I need help not just to be successful at the task on the platform, but I need help to be successful in my job and at my business.
Yeah.
And so I kind of went back to coach like our customer success team on, it's not just about like how to be successful using a tool like Suzy, but how to be successful in their role and in their careers too.
There's something you said that I think is really important. Like, the orientation of the customer isn't just how the customer uses Suzy and Zappi.
Yeah.
It's what are the 62 other things that they have to do? Because if you have empathy for that, it's
Yeah.
really easy then to place your thing into their ecosystem, because they have an ecosystem. Like, you have great customers and a great business, but maybe 2 hours of their day is spent in it. And so what are the other 8 hours? What are they doing then? And like, how does that all fit together? And I think a lot of marketers, they kind of screw that up. They don't think about, like,
Yeah.
I actually talked about this in one of my rants. Like, people who buy toothpaste also buy beer. They also buy chocolate. They also eat salads. So if you understand,
and they have a credit card and they book
they have a credit
vacations.
card.
It's
like, so you have to understand the whole customer. So I love that you say that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Ryan, this has been phenomenal. Thank you so much for joining me today, but also thank you for raising the bar, particularly for me professionally in the industry.
That means a lot to me coming from you, honestly. I'm like really I've always been like a major fan of yours. So it's fun to be friends, and it's fun to see each other in the trenches. I love it.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ryan.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for listening.
Thanks for joining the Insights and Innovators podcast from Market Research Institute International. Click subscribe to never miss an episode and visit us at mrii.org for more market research insights.